We start this hour in Eastern Europe, and President Volodymyr Zelensky said overnight Ukrainian forces struck Russian targets with long Neptune missiles in response to a massive Russian missile attack. He added the strikes were just a response and strengthened Ukraine's defense, with missiles showing increasing accuracy and range. Ukrainian air defenses repelled the night attack, neutralizing 14 targets, including aero-ballistic and ballistic missiles. Zelensky says Patriots and other systems worked without failures, protecting Ukraine's skies. Russia continued attacks on Ukrainian cities and critical infrastructure, with Kyiv's residential areas and energy facilities targeted. That same night, Russian cities Novorossiysk and Saratov were hit by drones, causing fires and infrastructure damage. Okay, now joining us to discuss the recent developments in the Ukraine conflict is Alison Mutler. She's the former Associated Press Bureau Chief, and she joins us live from Bucharest in Romania. Alison, thank you very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you. Of course, President Zelensky says Ukraine used these long Neptune targets inside Russian territory. How significant is this shift, and what does it say about Ukraine's current military capabilities? But what else do they want?
Well, Zelensky has been asking the United States for Tomahawk missiles for a long time, months, I think now. Donald Trump hasn't outright said no, but he certainly hasn't said yes. And so it's still an issue. They want these long-range missiles so they can strike key infrastructure, key energy depots in Russia. So they're now using some Ukrainian missiles, Neptune, and they have a range, I understand, of 1,000 kilometers. So that's what they're looking for, long-range missiles. And it shows that Ukraine, if it can't get the missiles it wants from the United States or from Europe, that it will go ahead and press ahead and use its own weaponry, its own arms. So it's important that, I suppose, Ukraine is showing some sort of independence and some resilience as well, but also it's trying to show some autonomy, that it's not just because he's been accused of always going around begging for money, etc., for the war effort. He stresses that the war effort in Ukraine is not just a defense of Ukraine, but also of Europe. But this development shows you that Ukraine is producing its own weapons and is producing the long-range missiles that Ukraine says it needs to repel Russia to strike key energy locations.
Yes, and Alison, of course, Kyiv just endured one of its deadliest Russian attacks in weeks, with 4 killed across the Ukrainian capital. Do you see this as a Russian retaliation to Kyiv hitting these oil refineries that it has been in the past few weeks?
For certain, I think it's a retaliation. Russia is very angry. It doesn't suit it at all that Ukraine has taken this its defense to another step, in that it's being, it's counterattacking, if you like. It's trying to strike Russian targets before to weaken Russia's attack on Ukraine. So obviously striking the capital is not just it's nothing to do with where the ethnic Russian population is. It's an attack on the heart of Ukraine, and this was a very, very heavy attack. I think there were hundreds of drones involved and 18 missiles involved. 4 people died, and I think dozens were injured, and a lot of people were displaced. They had to evacuate their homes. Buildings were damaged. So it was I think Zelensky called it a very wicked attack. Particularly, winter's coming, and a lot of the people who were targeted and who were injured or were killed were women and children. So yes, I do think it's a retaliation of Russia saying, well, if you're going to strike our energy centers, or you're going to make strategic strikes on our infrastructure, then we are going to hit you hard, and we're going to hit you where it hurts in your capital, and we're going to kill a lot of people.
Yes, Alison, we have more on that as well. Do stay with us, where Ukrainian officials have reported that at least 4 people were killed and dozens more wounded in a Russian strike which hit a newly built residential complex in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. Adding on, President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russian forces used 430 drones and 18 missiles, marking one of the largest strikes on the capital so far. The building, which had no tenants, was left with rubble-filled corridors and apartments without windows. Sunlight streamed through the openings where glass once stood. Alison joins us once again. Alison, 430 drones and 18 missiles have been launched at these high-rise buildings in the Ukrainian capital. What can you tell us about the current state of the aerial warfare in this conflict now, as 430 drones towards the capital overnight from Moscow? Substantial number.
His report said it's the biggest one ever. It's showing that Russia is not backing down. Russia will continue, and Russia will not just press in on the eastern flank, which it wants to grab for its territory. It will strike at the heart of Ukraine, on its capital, and it will strike not as Ukraine is hitting strategic and energy centers, but Russia will strike civilians. It's been this latest aerial attack, which is very hard to defend against, struck residential buildings. Now, I think from what you're reporting, it could have been worse. There could have been people in those residential buildings, but they were new. But it still had a terrible effect. As you said, 4 people dead and dozens injured. And it was a massive attack. But it's also a psychological warfare, because there were, as you said, there were 430 drones, 18 missiles. That must have gone on for a long time, and that would have caused a lot of trauma and distress to the residents of Kiev. And it's psychological. It's Russia saying that no place is out of bounds, and we're coming to get you, and we will strike civilians. This is not about just grabbing territory or neutralizing Ukrainian energy centers.
Yes, and Alison, what else was hit last night was the Russian Black Sea port of Novorossiysk. This was hit in a Ukrainian attack. How have you analysed the Ukrainian tactics when it comes to hitting Russian energy infrastructure and ports, and how effective do you think they've been?
I think, first of all, in terms of how the news plays out, it's effective to strike energy infrastructure, because it weakens Russia's attack, and it weakens Russia generally. But it has a better look, if you like, because they're not striking civilians. It's not about killing people. It's about weakening Russia. And Ukraine has proved in the last year or so, they've proved quite good at this, that they are using these long range missiles, the ones they used last night, but they have been striking around the Black Sea, which is a very heavily contested area. And the aim is to weaken Russia's infrastructure, and Ukraine so far has been doing it quite successfully. And I imagine that they will continue doing this because their aim isn't to kill Russians, quote unquote, apart from if there's armed combat or it's actually on the ground. But their aim is to weaken Russia, so Russia can't. Their attack against Ukraine is much harder.
Yes, Alison, do stay with us as we have further updates coming out of the conflict for our viewers. The German Defence Minister, Boris Pistorius, is hosting a meeting